They tell me that AI, artificial intelligence, is the way to salvation for them, that's why they're putting so much money into it, because they can become more than human.
Welcome to North Idaho Experience. Today's episode, Dave and I sit down with Tony Marcella. Enjoy.
All right, so let's go back to the salt thing real quick.
Yeah.
All right, so cystic fibrosis.
Yeah.
You just don't absorb salt. You said there was a sweat test to
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah, which we're recording now?
Yeah,
Or?
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so part of my story, I'm an advocate for what's called atypical cystic fibrosis. Super new study on that. So traditionally, doctors thought you had to have both parents carrying the gene. And it was a hallmark of lung issues, right? Anyone you hear about with CF, it's like they can't breathe, they got to go through all that. Since high school, I've had symptoms of atypical, couldn't get it diagnosed. I've been poked, prodded, seen every specialist that we could see, and they just never thought to test for CF. And turns out genetic panel and what's called a sweat test proved it. And part of my wife and I's story, we don't trust the medical system.
Go figure.
Welcome to the club, brother. Yeah.
There's so many times if I trusted the authorities, like I would probably be dead. They were trying to get me on like proton pump inhibitors and all kinds of things that would have wreaked havoc. And but yeah, thankfully last year that was the solve, and it affects my other organs, so my brain, my pancreas, intestinal tract, and the salt. I have to take a bunch of it because the gene is CFTR, and it's a regulator. So if you think of like the cell membrane, and I should probably say I've got a Bachelor of Science. Like thought I was going to go the medical route.
Okay.
I'm a
Okay.
bachelor history degree. So
Oh, cool. There you go.
really fine.
English.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We have two useless.
So-
Well,
majors
it's not
over here.
useless. Hey,
It's pretty useless.
I'm a student of history. It's
We
so
all are.
important, so important. But
I'm just a product of history. I'm not a student. But
Okay, so
so, and I take that every meal, and man, that changed my life, you guys.
is that like a
that's-
digestive enzyme?
Yeah,
is that what they call
yeah,
it? Okay.
but
that's
it's
Liver
just-
King's thing, right? Ancestral
yeah,
supplements.
yeah.
I've
but-
taken some of their stuff. I took some of their. Are they the ones that have the bull testicle?
Yeah.
Hey guys, before we get too deep, make sure you hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest North Idaho Experience content. And if you're thinking about buying, selling, relocating, or just exploring North Idaho, reach out to our team. We're proud to be one of the top-rated real estate teams in North Idaho with the 5-star reviews to back it up. We don't just sell homes, we help people experience North Idaho. Our contact info is in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode.
The enzyme, I can tell when I don't take it, and
Wow.
with supplements, I'm always skeptical. Like, does this work or not? But man, that changed my life. So I gained weight. I know I'm thin anyway, but like I was gaunt, you guys, and I was dying last year because the number one reason or cause for mortality with this is lack of it's malnutrition. And so I was literally just dying from lack of nutrients, and my heart was the last thing to start giving way. And so I literally had heart attack symptoms, going to the hospital.
Holy
And
crap.
they had no idea like where to go at it. And then frustrating thing is the first thing they give you at a hospital is saline, is IV. So that was helping me. But then they would check my vitals and they're like, what's wrong? Everything's fine.
You were getting the salt from it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know
What-
what's crazy? You said you brought up the medical system, and
Mhm.
it's so nutty to me because the medical system is a practice.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they always say, oh, I'm practicing whatever.
Yeah.
And
I thought you said racket for a second.
no,
Okay.
no, practicing. And it's crazy because you said you don't trust the medical system. I don't know. When you look at the medical system in general, like you're just a specimen, right? Like
It's a practice.
the
It's
medical
always a practice.
system in general is not out to save you. It's out to study you.
Yeah.
That's how we've come where we are, right? And
Mhm.
and it's a little disconcerting because when you have somebody like you that has some things that's a little more rare,
Mhm.
it's we don't have an answer. So it's more of trial and error. Well, what's
Mhm.
working for you? Maybe this, maybe that. The people don't really know, and it's hard because you go in there and you expect to get it, but when you have something, I had Guillain-Barré years ago, and that's it's considered rare, but
Mhm.
there's enough education out there. They know how to treat it, how
Yeah.
to deal with it. But even that, when I went, it felt like I was being studied, and not everything was working, right? So I can imagine with something like what you have, and not being a little more atypical,
Yeah.
it's got to be something where you go in consistently over and over, and you're not getting answers.
I have seen every specialist that I could, and the frustrating part is there's a lot of pressure. Every medical professional I saw, they make you feel stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, and there was the rare case, where someone might be interested in solving the root cause, but it's largely a love of money. That they're wanting to peddle pharmaceuticals, which largely are not treating the root cause.
Well, that's the thing. I was right.
Yeah.
I was a medic, and I wasn't taught
Hmm.
necessarily how to fix the problem. I was taught how to mask the problem, right? So
Yeah.
if you tell me that you have pain, and
Yeah.
I give you morphine, and you say I
I
still have
still.
pain, I go, no, you don't.
Yeah.
I gave you morphine. That's what we're supposed to do, and I'm certain that's what you've gone through. Is that
Hmm.
they go through the protocols of ABC, and then
Yeah.
well, he must be a hypochondriac. He must be lying.
Yeah.
It's working. You just need to relax.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing is, and I think the number's like 7 minutes is the average time you get with your doctor when you
Hmm.
go into for an appointment. Uh, they're so busy, and no knock on doctors. There's great doctors out
Yeah.
there, but they're so busy that it's just like boom, boom, boom. How can
Yeah.
we treat the symptom, right?
Hmm.
And then you start
Well, that's how you're
exploring.
trained
Sure,
as a doctor,
yeah. And then
right?
you start exploring naturopathic doctors, and
Hmm.
and they're generally quite a bit longer for the appointments, and they're
Yeah.
exploring a lot of other options, and they can be great. I'm speaking from experience because my wife's been dealing with like some migraine issues for
Hmm.
years, and she has been to every imaginable, same thing you went through, and then all the naturopaths, and they all start out the same, like, all right,
Hmm.
this is what I specialize in. I'm
Yeah.
confident I can fit, and they try all of these things, and we get nowhere, and it's frustrating.
Well, and I think the difficult thing for people to realize is that we don't understand the human body. Like with all the billions of dollars that have gone into cancer research and all it, the honest truth is we still do not understand how the human body works. And we have a good overview, but it's very complicated. And yeah, I think that is why it is a practice. It's
Right.
a continual practice, and there's good things and bad things from that. But my like message today about this would be that anyone listening would never trust an authority just because they're an authority.
Oh,
Mm,
That they would always be a student of research and follow scientific method, test it, find out yourself, find more than 3 sources, right? So don't just trust one person's word. And that goes for both sides, man, because the holistic side, the naturopath can get wacky too.
yeah.
mm,
I mean, not too long ago, people were still, turpentine.
mm-hmm.
They were downing that as like a health preventative, and they were literally
What?
like, yeah, they're literally like destroying their intestines and pooping it out, like crazy stuff. And you can convince what's
Ooh.
crazy about the human body is we can literally convince ourselves that what we're doing is right, even when we're
Right.
killing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but the crazy thing is too, what's wild is that you said, be a student, right? Study yourself and don't always just trust somebody because they're an authority. But the
Yeah.
problem is nowadays, man, you go online and
Mhm.
you can find yourself down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
where it's like, what do I trust? Where's the where's the
Do
the
you
source?
do you think there's a bit of a generational thing here? I think to like
Mhm.
my parents'
Mm.
generation, right? They're much more trusting in the
Yeah. Oh,
establishment in
absolutely.
doctors, right? And our generation is starting to see
Mhm.
through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a family dynamic. I'm so grateful for my parents throughout the whole process because they were a lot of new things, figuring out about this, and they're much more, trusting of that system than I am. And
Mm,
Well, the system they had before, it's when money
Mhm.
starts getting involved, right? You have sincere people that want to
Mhm.
solve problems. There's a lot of smart minds out there that do some really good stuff for
Yeah.
people.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
however, the system that
Mhm.
probably especially our grandparents grew up in, right, was a system that I think had a lot of motivation to actually fix illness and disease and everything
Yeah.
else. Once you incorporate a way to make money,
Mhm.
then you have organizations that are taking advantage of people that have a good desire to do things, right?
you're talking about big pharma.
At big pharma, right? And then you take and then you inject money, and now you change the whole system to where it's what's going to cost less? Is it going to
Mhm.
cost less to solve his problem, or is it going to cost less to give him medications and
Yeah.
just let him keep going? How do we make more money? And so it sucks because, like you said, I mean, the system that they grew up with was probably a little more sincere than the system now.
Yeah, and that is across the board. I would say, I'm into natural eating now. We're up in Bonner's Ferry, and it's all about homesteading there. We're friends with the homesteading family. They've got, if you've heard of Joel Salatin, Polyface Farms,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I guess the cereals, the bars, the everything that you find in the aisles of a store are not at all what they were when you guys were growing up. Have you seen those slides comparing the ingredients of like,
Oh, it's insane.
It's-
I lose my mind over
yeah.
this shit. You're speaking my language
Yeah.
right now. Because we've had this, we've like, since my kids were little and they're teenagers now, but we've had this conversation over and over and over again. Like, let's read the label.
Yeah.
And when you start reading labels on things, it will terrify you, the crap that is in there.
Well,
Like you cannot pronounce most of it.
And
And
it's-
that's a problem.
Yeah.
what's nuts is that even if you're shopping in a regular grocery store, right, not Pilgrims or something else or Natural Grocers,
Can you say Pilgrims like a little more enthusiastic?
Pilgrims.
Not,
I love
don't,
Pilgrims.
it almost sounds
They're
like, it
great.
almost
Yeah,
sounded
I
down.
love Pilgrims,
It's
but
my jam, dude. That's my
Here's
store.
the thing. Like, I bought ketchup the other day.
Oh no.
All right.
No,
And
that's a
you-
risky business, bro.
But here's the thing. You go in there and I'm looking at it, and there's on the same shelf, there's 4 different types of Heinz ketchup. And there's one Heinz ketchup that when you look at it, it says tomato paste, spices, and salt.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay. And then you grab
Nice.
another one, and then you look at it, it's high fructose corn syrup, everything else. And they're right next to each other. And by the way, they're damn near the same price. And I start looking at that and going, why is the one with high fructose and everything, why is that even an option?
Right.
And truthfully, I really think it's just cheaper, and they're happy to put out the other
is
one
just
too.
cheaper. That's why they do
just
it.
because.
But and then you get into the, you go to Pilgrims and you'll get a much larger selection. You'll get like
Right.
Primal Kitchen stuff, what has
Yeah.
no seed oils, no high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
It doesn't taste quite as good, right? Your palate needs to adjust.
I have not noticed a difference with the Heinz ketchup.
Yeah.
Not
No,
a bit.
you won't notice
Sometimes.
that one as much.
That
but-
drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But if you get into the better stuff,
Yeah.
Right.
you'll notice it's generally not sweet.
But I don't think it's that it's bad. It's just our
Our
taste
palates,
buds are
they're
jacked up.
They're jacked,
Yeah.
100%.
We look for high density foods right now.
Yeah, I get so frustrated about this. I've been eating a very, very low carb diet for, I don't know, I'm like going on like 7 weeks now.
Nice.
And so it's primarily meat and vegetables is basically what I'm doing. Super low sugar. I started it because, and I think it's hereditary. My entire life, my A1C is always like pre-diabetic when I get blood work done, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I'm like, man, I work out, I'm clean. Like, why? So my hope is that, and I won't get blood work done for another couple months, but my hope is that I'm going to bring that A1C marker down to like a normal level.
Yeah, when I was graduating, one of the research papers I wrote, they were just putting out studies proving that every person has a genetic food predisposition. So they were actually showing that an apple for one person was bad for another person. And so it throws out the whole dietary, food pyramid recommendation. And they were developing a blood test. I don't know how far along it is now to actually take, and it will tell you by your hereditary genetic history what you're better off with and what's not going to spike your blood sugar, what's not going to.
This is such a cool concept to me. Here's my challenge: is that I am of Scandinavian descent.
Okay.
And I don't like fish that much.
Yeah,
So,
sure,
and I know that is primarily what they
Yeah,
eat. So
yeah.
I'm in this real conundrum here of what
Yeah.
do I do? I like beef. So there we go.
I think with the mixture in ethnicities and everything else now. I mean, most people in America are a melting pot. I think that contributes to the fact that our bodies can't figure out what it actually wants.
Yeah.
But when you look at people that can, I mean, I was talking about this. If you just go back, man, if you go back 125 years, right? You go back to 1900, you weren't eating oranges and avocados
or a granola bar.
in Idaho very much. Because they don't grow up here.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You were eating berries. You were eating. I mean, there were certain things. We still cultivated things, but there's certain things that you just didn't eat. Your body wasn't used to it. You go back 250 years, and none of that stuff was transported up here. Like you had certain diets in certain regions. So you think of Scandinavia, there were certain diets for people that were wholly
Mhm.
Scandinavian or
Mhm.
Irish or English. You start going down to the equator, that's a totally different diet.
Yeah, and it was seasonal too. So like
Yes.
Right.
you would eat what was available during that season. And they've found out now that that's actually better because there's certain nutrients in plants from the fall that you don't get from plants in the summer. And it's interesting.
And I'm certain there's things that tie into your sun exposure and
Mhm.
everything. Let me ask you a question before we go too far on this stuff.
Yeah.
Tony, give me your background a little bit more real
Yeah.
quick so people know a little more about you before we keep going on this.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a full stack programmer, um, software engineer, entrepreneur. So I've worked with over 100 companies, from Disney Imagineers to biohackers to former military leaders and global ministries. And I've been able to lead a team now with the company we have. It's called Shiloh. Um, and we have two projects that we do. One's called Last Hour Hosting, which is a replacement for like GoDaddy or Bluehost. We
Okay.
finally got tired of using their platforms. It's 100% in the U.S. Uh,
Nice.
and then the other one is the retreat that we do, and that's coming up in September. It's called Echo, and we're all about what we're talking about here, which is echoing timeless principles with eternal perspective is kind of the idea. So, but yeah, man, I was a professional drummer at one point.
Really?
I toured in the Bay Area and recorded in one of Rick Rubin's satellite studios. Yeah, like 5 Seconds of Summer was on the
No
roster there,
way.
and it just yeah, there's
That's
lots of
rad.
interesting experiences. I'm a nerd about movies. I've done media production for 15 years and got to meet like Phil Tippett. He was the guy that did all the claymation in Star Wars when they're inside the
Oh, really?
yeah, and he did Jurassic Park and but yeah, I'm one of those guys that I had it was about 20 different employee jobs before I finally realized because I was in all different areas of companies. I'm supposed to be the guy that's running the company,
Yes.
Right.
and that changed everything when I realized that entrepreneurship is a thing. And I got after college, I said I was pursuing Bachelor of Science. Well, they raised all the limits for that. I was going to be an exercise physiologist, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, you got to have a master's now." And I was burnt out on
Oh,
college.
dude.
Student
I get
debt,
it.
which I paid off all my student debt myself.
I did too. High
Yeah,
five.
yeah, yeah.
Same.
Yes.
That's how it should be.
Where'd you go to college? You were Bay Area?
It was in the Roseville, Rockland area of
I know it. I
California,
know it well.
and William Jessup University.
Okay.
It's just a small, like, private Christian, university, and I ended up being the student body president there. So a lot of fun stuff.
Nice. Well, it's interesting you talked about timeless principles.
Mhm.
We have a Men's Forge Bible study the first
Oh,
Friday
cool.
of every month. It's
Nice.
a 6 a.m. thing, and I'm trying to be religious about it to make sure I'm there because
Yeah.
I can't always make all the Bible studies and everything. But the funny thing they talked about when you talk about timeless principles,
Mhm.
they talked about the things that have changed for us and how we should look at things. They brought up dating.
Yeah.
Right? They brought up dating today. Like,
Yeah.
think of what your kids do. And this was it actually, I'm like, holy crap, this makes sense. They go, you think back to just 100 years ago, what happened? And we're all like, World War I, we got the
Mhm.
Great Depression. He's like, no, something different. I'm like, and he's like, cars.
Mm.
I'm like, all right, I'm not tracking yet. And he goes, here's the thing. When cars came out, dating changed.
Mm.
He goes, prior to that, when you dated somebody, you would have to go over to their house, right? If you were courting somebody, you would go over to the house, and most of the dating experience would happen there with the
Yeah.
family. There would be input, there would be connection, there would be the
Mhm.
questions. You know what I mean? It would be
Wow.
almost supervised.
Mhm.
And it's funny because the age of marriage also was super young at that time.
Yeah.
But that courting and that courtship and that relationship developed around the home. Once cars came in,
Mm.
they said, he went through the statistics on how many families had cars, which was actually astounding when they first came out. But he's like, all of a sudden, you were going somewhere and taking somebody and going
Wow.
somewhere else. And he goes now, and then he went through all the stats on premarital sex and
Mhm.
relationships and all these
Yeah.
things. And just that, even though it comes back to where you talk about timeless traditions and
Mhm.
everything else, and it was amazing just when we start looking at all the different aspects of things have changed, not just food and
Yeah.
medicine and everything else, just culture in general is completely different
Yeah.
than it has been in history.
Yeah, and for good and for bad,
Right.
there's a I read this interesting book. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it proposed this idea that every innovation begets more problems. So you look at the car, for example, it solved the issue of fast transportation, but then it causes a bunch of downhill, issues from there, and it raises an interesting implication.
We're almost in this cycle of we as humans innovate,
Hmm.
which creates solutions,
Hmm.
but more problems. Now we have to innovate
Yes,
to fix those
Yeah.
problems, which
yeah,
it's like a nonstop
nonstop
cycle,
cycle.
which is cool because it drives us to greater and greater technology. But
Yeah.
it almost feels like we're at a precipice right now between those timeless
Yes.
principles and tradition
Yeah.
and this unknown chasm of AI and
Yeah.
technology that
God.
Yeah, and I could go down the rabbit hole with you guys. I've met and talked with some very influential, tech people and have a pretty good understanding of where they're trying to go. But yeah,
is it good or bad?
bad. Like
Why?
because absolute power absolutely corrupts.
Mm.
And the general history of people is that we have a disposition towards sin. And I don't care who you are, you read about it in scripture, David, or others. When you have that level of authority and power, for example, with AI, it will be abused. And we've been warned, if you guys want to go down a rabbit hole, look
Let's
up
go.
Ray Kurzweil. He is the tech prophet for Bezos and these guys. He wrote books years and years ago about everything you're seeing now. And these guys, if you look at Asimov, his fiction, all of that's coming true. And so there's this continued this narrative that is continuing. And if you guys have spent any time in government or around government, you see how just incapable,
Yeah.
and not the puppet hand behind everything. It's just a very broken process. Then you see, okay, there's something deeper here. But yeah, I think overall, like anything artificial is not good for you, and that's true for food and for technology. But
Is this kind of what drove you to Idaho? I was going to ask when you moved here and what was the
yeah,
reason.
yeah. So we've owned this company since like 22, and we had always we got on the road and we're full time travelers, and so it was pretty sweet. I was on a meeting and in the middle of like the desert with giant cactus trees. And I'd have fun with it, put a cowboy hat on. And this was before Starlink. So I had rigged up this it's called an LPDA array, and it's this giant metal antenna that I created a mast for, and we'd park at a spot boondocking 2 weeks at a time. And that would point at the nearest cell tower and gain the signal.
Oh my
And so I
gosh.
was having full Zoom, meetings in the middle of nowhere. But we were traveling, having fun. We got all the way to Tennessee, hit the tornado alley, and this thing scared us. We had a close call, and we're just in this motorhome, and it's just shaking. And the weather there is way different than here.
Oh yeah.
But we ended up heading back. We wanted to spend time with family for Christmas, and in North Dakota, we had an engine fire. And I'm a mechanic. Like I drive a diesel turbo Dodge, and love working on it. And I worked on this. It was a Triton V10, E350. Unfortunately, Ford. Not don't want to offend anyone here, but
Oh, that's fine.
I took good care of it. It didn't have that large of miles, but it just self-destructed. I was driving middle of nowhere, and what happened was I started hearing this rattling when I would accelerate. And anytime you hear something like that, it's like the dread. You're just okay. What is this?
Oh yeah.
And so I pull over, check it out. I think it's coming from the transmission. And I'm like, okay, we're 30 minutes from the nearest town. We can't stop on the main highway here overnight. So I make the call. All right, we're gonna move forward. Kid you not, 15 minutes in, boom,
Uh,
and the whole front windshield was covered in white smoke. I pit it, and it's a 30-foot, motorhome. Pull over, run outside, flip the hood open, and I had volunteered for the Sacramento Fire Department before COVID, and did their like CERT program.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trained all the way up to EMR, right below, you know, being an actual professional EMT, and knew about fire stuff, but flames threw out from the engine at me, and I'm like, oh no! So I go grab the fire extinguisher, start using it. It is expired.
Oh no.
And I literally was in the moment thinking back to the training that I had, and they were saying, yeah, make sure to not have expired extinguisher. And so I'm shaking the thing, you know, maybe it's compacted. And it's like, no, this isn't going out. So would you believe that the only thing we had on hand, we'd been to Costco, is gallon jugs of apple juice. It sounds
Oh,
hilarious.
that's gonna smell
Oh,
terrible.
it smelled amazing.
Oh, God.
It's
Sweet.
just
Caramelized.
coolant and oil. So I doused the thing and I got it out. And thinking about later, you know, this was an oil coolant fire. It could have just, you know,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
splatter. But yeah, thankfully, thank the Lord, we got it out and saved all of our stuff in the motorhome. You know, it didn't do anything there. But my wife and I from there stayed in a motel in North Dakota, in Jamestown, North Dakota. Their symbol is a bison. They're like known for this giant bison statue. And we spent 2 weeks, and we had emergency budget, and we were staying for 2 weeks praying. We were just so relying on the Lord, because we believe, you know, leave and cleave. We're not going back to our parents, you know, at that moment. We have to survive on our own. And we really wanted to go back on the road. This thing was sweet, you guys. We had built like a whole off-grid solar array for it, and
Dude.
Oh.
super fun stuff. That wasn't going to be possible. This was right after COVID. They had a shortage of crate engines for this. They had determined that the thing just self-destructed. You know, the engine was just not usable. They had a shortage of crate engines, 3-month wait. And so we weren't going to stay in a motel for 3 months. You know, this is racking up so much money. So then we go, okay, we have to find a place to live, to rent, and get off the road, put this thing in storage. We went to every state, including North Dakota. No, no, no. There was so much saturation in the rental market. They laughed at us. They literally would laugh at us when we would call and say, yeah, good luck, get in line. And we had to pay fees, you know, every time we would apply for an application. And we were down to the wire. It was the weekend we had to leave, and we'd been praying. We're like, Lord, wherever you want us to go. And North Idaho, when we had gone through here, was like the only place that we felt called to. It was really strange. You know, we just felt this was where we wanted to be eventually. So it was on my mind, and I told my wife, you know what? If anything, we're just going to go there. Like, sight unseen, just show up. The Lord's got to provide. Well, in that moment, we get a call, and I had messaged a group of people, you know, for prayer. And the guy who calls me, his name's Bill Rapier. He owns Amtac Shooting locally here. You know, former Navy SEAL, amazing guy. Gives me a call. Hey, Tony, guess what? We have a single wide that is open starting this weekend. The person's moving out this weekend. Do you want it? And my wife and I just were floored. We're like, what? You know, and so
Cool.
we said, yes, absolutely. This is our only option at this point. And it was in North Idaho. And so sight unseen, we loaded up everything into a U-Haul, drove 16 hours, made it to the border in Butte, Montana, and there was no place to stay the night there. And we're like newlywed at this point, you guys. And so I'm not winning points with my wife's parents. So she was trying to keep things on the down low at this point. But we literally had to stay the night in a pilot. It was a Flying J or pilot parking lot next to the big rigs.
Yep.
In this little sedan, because there was zero places to stay. We even checked campgrounds, and it was the lowest point. Like, I just felt such a loser at that point, you know. But we made it, and wow, what a blessing! We got to learn about homesteading and take care of all kinds of animals, and really just fell in love with that lifestyle, you know.
That's awesome.
Coming away from California. I grew up in Nevada, Carson Valley. So I've been exposed a bit to that, never really farming, that kind of stuff. But man, there's something about it. It's like we're wired for it.
We are wired for it.
Yeah, people that get the opportunity to do that. I mean, we lived in Coeur d'Alene Place here in town for years, and we loved it. It was great. Beautiful community, great neighbors, everything. But even driving, I had to drive here today from that place, and I'm like, I couldn't do this anymore. I had to hit like 9 lights. I'm
Yeah.
gonna lose my mind. And once you move on property and you get the opportunity to
Yeah.
just have a chicken,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that you go out there every day and you pick up an egg, it's something that is so obvious
Yeah.
and so common, yet people don't even know that anymore in
Yeah.
this world.
Like they
right?
look at the package in the store and think that's what it looks like.
Right.
You know, they don't associate. We're dissociated with the whole process of killing an animal and processing the meat. And there's something psychological that's important to have that connection with what you're eating and growing. And
It's pretty amazing. And like you
Mhm.
said, I think we are wired for it.
Mhm.
People, I mean, we've learned so much just from being on the property for a year.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's crazy.
Just I mean, looking at your wife, you know, she just
Oh my
loves her
God, yeah.
animals
I
up
don't even see
there.
my
and
wife
she-
anymore.
Yeah,
She
she's
hangs out with her
outside doing.
cats and bunnies
Yeah.
and dogs and chickens. It's just
Yeah, you've got more animals than I do now.
29.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's phenomenal. Yeah.
So you know, yeah, we're speaking the language here. So yeah, the event in Bonners Ferry is in September 11th through the 13th.
This is the Shiloh retreat.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's all, you know, Shiloh means peace.
Yep.
I talk to people and everyone seems just full of anxiety right now about the future. They're stressed out. You know, the family's under attack right now on all fronts, whether it's marriage, finances. You know, what we're trying to provide here is a very affordable place for families to get together. We're renting out the whole 100+ acre. It's called Boulder Creek Retreat. And there's going to be everything from hiking, mountain biking, swimming. We're bringing in Fire Iron Forge there. David Walker,
Oh,
do you
wait.
know him?
No,
Yeah. Wasn't he one of John's clients?
I don't know. What's he make?
He's a blacksmith. And
Yes.
not only he's like one of the
Think he
best
is.
in Idaho. And he's going to be doing on-site blacksmithing. We're going to have
Yes, he invited me up to come up and make a knife. I need to go up there.
there
and
you
do
go.
it.
Yes, you do.
I need to go.
So
up
why
there
don't
and
we
do it.
take a trip when
I'm in.
for
Yeah.
this?
And the cost, you guys, right now, it's $30 for all 3 days.
Oh my gosh. That's
We're
cheap.
making it as we got some amazing sponsors I could tell you about, but like
Awesome.
3 days, super affordable. And if you want to stay the night, it's $115 for 3 days.
That's
Wow.
rad.
And that's our goal, is to make it affordable, but it's going to be unlike anything you've been to here. You know, I'm familiar with the Modern Homesteading Conference and everything. This is all about hands-on skills sharing. And so it's not like
That
walking
is
up
so cool.
and I mean, we're going to have a gun range there.
Is do you know Neil Dyer?
Neil
We talked about
Dyer.
Neil- Okay.
He's speaking. So Neil's speaking and he's going to be manning the gun range. Jaeger Defense is going to be there.
Dude.
We're going to be running 5.56 through silent suppressors for people. So you can go up and enjoy that activity.
So Chris with Jaeger Defense is one of my new favorite humans.
There you go.
He's rad, dude.
Yeah.
So he's been on the podcast. And well, I just went shooting with him last week.
Nice.
So yeah, he's cool.
That's awesome.
So, and there's much more. If you go to shilohecho.org, that's Shiloh with an H. You could literally just type it into Google at this point. You'll see we've got over 12 speakers. And we're talking about topics, timeless topics like privacy, freedom, you know, off-grid, simple living. And so we've got a guy named Sean Terrio who has over 15 years experience as a technology privacy expert. And he's going to be teaching people on site how to own their technology, their privacy. He was one of the founders.
Amazing.
He was one of the founders of RightForge, which got turned into Truth Social. So
So, you know,
Amazing.
it's interesting you talked about when you brought it up, like the retreat, being able to, you're saying like bringing down people's anxiety or something like
Yes.
that?
Yeah. So we want to create a place of peace and rest, promote unity. I believe that the way things are headed right now, which is largely globalization. I gave a talk and I don't hear people talking about this right now, but I think globalization failed. I think that it's a failed experiment. I think largely everything is worse quality right now, whether it's products that we have, customer service, and it's because there's no accountability. When something's so big, you know, who are you going to go to at Google when you've got an issue?
100%.
No.
I constantly say that when we have,
Yeah.
I say, if you
Oh,
know
yeah.
who to punch in the face,
Mhm.
It's so
then you
annoying.
can usually get stuff done.
And that's a polite society. And there's a reason why Idaho, you know, going to another level of decentralization, you know, we have concealed carry as a right here, you know, constitutional right. and it's also one of the safest states in the nation.
It is actually now the
The
safest
safest
state.
state. There's a reason. So apply that theory to everything else. You know, when I was saying absolute power, absolute corrupts, I think that we should pursue decentralization. I believe that local community, local business is the future of the US. And so this event is all about supporting local food. All the food, I'll say this real quick. Unlike other events, all our food there is going to be fully sourced from local
Oh my
farmers.
gosh.
And you guys, the meals are so affordable.
Yeah.
Like, and so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're going to be eating non-GMO, no seed oil. It's all, you know, from local farmers, created on site for you. And so,
North Idaho Arms is a proud sponsor of this podcast. North Idaho Arms is a locally owned, full-service gun store in Post Falls, Idaho, founded under one guiding principle. They are unapologetically pro-2A. The owner, BZ, is a friend of ours and is a 2A rights absolutist. North Idaho Arms throws a flaming middle finger to all unconstitutional gun laws. Handguns, rifles, suppressors, magazines, ammo, complicated moves, estate transaction. BZ does it all, and yes, you can purchase some of these items if you're a Washington resident. Go see BZ at North Idaho Arms, Post Falls, Idaho. How many people are you anticipating? This is not the first year, right?
this is second.
Second year, okay.
Second year. And again, I almost died last year. That was the impetus. I was just like, I got to do this because it's been on my heart for years, this vision. And I finally was just like, I got to do this. I can't hold off anymore. Life's too short, you know?
Yep.
And so it's self-funded. Like we thankfully had sponsors this year to help offset costs, but we're just hoping to break even this year. But all said and done, we're expecting up to 300
Cool.
on site. We hope to have as many people as we can.
You know, what's neat about it is that, you know, you talk about decreasing the anxiety, and a lot of people that jump in. We have a lot of preppers up here, right?
Yeah.
And I have a tendency to give people a little bit of strife, because I'm like, are you a prepper or are you a hoarder, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some people like, I have, you know, 200 jars of pickles in the basement. That's not living. That's hoarding. So, but being a prepper and understanding, I feel like the word prepper it gives a lot of anxiety.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Because, and it is, this world is full of anxiety right now. When you're doing something where you're probably going to incorporate prayer, you're going to have things to where you want to actually put people at ease and understand that there's a better way to live, is understanding that it's not necessarily about prepping because something's going to happen. It's about preparing for every single day of life, right? It's about being able to wake up in the morning and say, I can live off of what's here. I can take care of myself. I understand how to do these things. I have skills.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not necessarily you're preparing for the end of the world, right?
No, it's a lifestyle. What we're doing, and we're flying out a folk artist musician, Christian guy from Nashville. You're gonna hear more about him in the future. His music has just taken off, but William Toll. So he's gonna be leading worship, playing some of his own songs there.
Tollo?
Yeah, William Toll. Yeah,
Okay.
Tollo. And yeah, absolutely. We're actually staying away from the word prepper because it's just been so, you know, co-opted. And, you know, I've been to a few events surrounding that, and it's just not very family friendly.
It's not.
You know, so we're staying away from that. But the idea that we get around, think about Joseph in scripture. You know, the guy had foresight, vision about something that was going to be impacting his community, his family, everything. It was a famine. And he was able to prepare for that in a way that was taking care of his community. And the issue I see a lot in Idaho, in other states, is isolationism.
Right.
You're so silly if you think that you're going to write out disaster emergency on your own. No one deep down, I believe, wants that. We want community, fellowship. And so this is a starting point for changing habits, changing lifestyle away from that whole centralization, globalism direction toward community focused, off grid, you know, decentralization, because I think we'll be a stronger Idaho for that.
That was about the best sales pitch for Idaho you could ever put out there.
We're meant to live in community. We watch these movies and you think that it's all about being tough and being on your own, and you know, and that's not it. Like, it really is. We are meant for community. We're made for community.
Yeah. Have you seen Homestead, that show on Angel
Yes.
Studios? So Josh Thomas is one of the advisors for that show, and he's in Bonners Ferry, and just like, yeah, that's exactly, themes from that. I think last year one of our speakers shared a clip from that, just kind of showing the impact. But yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's when, because we know in history that it goes through cycles,
Mm.
that there are times of famine, there are times of plenty, there are times of suffering, times of, so that's the idea behind this event. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Like at the end of the
Sounds
day,
cool.
the things that we're providing here, I don't see in other events. And for the price point, and, we're going to create a really safe, family friendly environment. Where else can you go shoot guns and swim and kayak and fish, and also, hear from world leading experts in different topics. And we'll have childcare as well during
No way.
yeah, for those speakers while the parents are watching. That was something they asked last year, is like, can we have a place for our kids to go have fun while we're learning? So yeah,
Should
it's
put our kids in there.
They're like 18.
yeah, there you go.
Like, I'm an adult. Get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go sit down.
Yeah, that's super cool. So how do you implement it? Sounds like obviously you're a man of faith and everything else.
Yeah.
How do you implement faith into all this stuff, and
Yeah.
and how does that come in the Shiloh Retreat?
Well, you got to have a moral basis for what you do, right? And even people who are secularists have to admit some sort of moral base for their decisions. And I'm a little biased, but even our own country admits that God is the moral basis for our Constitution, for our rights as human beings. And so I just take that further and say it's the God of the Bible, and so for this event and for our tech company, that's our accountability. We actually have a statement of faith, just like any other ministry would. And that's our accountability as a team to our customers, and that's really how we implement it.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
I love that, because I think too many people are afraid to pronounce their faith, pronounce their beliefs, pronounce whatever it is now, because they're afraid of offending somebody.
Yeah,
And I really value, even if it's on something that I don't agree with, I
Sure.
really value businesses that can
Yeah.
actually stand up and say, hey, this is our belief, not
Mhm.
because somebody told us to or because it's politically correct.
Yeah.
This is what we believe, and this is how we're going to operate, right? You can still be inclusive.
Yes.
But this is how we're going to operate.
And we're not about forcing you to believe what we believe. It's about showing why we think this is a better way, and through example. And I'll say this: the U.S. is very interesting. It has religious institutions and non-religious, but you get down to it with technology, for example. Mark Zuckerberg's had his Buddhist, or his Eastern religion teacher come and speak to his employees many times, and that's his philosophy for Facebook, Meta. You have the transhumanist religion that is taking over, with AI, and I've talked to these guys in Utah, and they get for no reason get angry at me because I believe that Jesus has the best solution for salvation. I'm totally open to having grown up conversations about that, but they get so furious when I bring that up because their God, that they tell me, it's not me putting this in their mouth. They tell me that AI, artificial intelligence, is the way to salvation for them, that's why they're putting so much money into it, because they can become more than human. And that's why you get into Ray Kurzweil and these guys with transhumanism. They want to transition from being just human, I call it edging God out, and become much more. And that's
Is this a desire to
crazy.
live forever? What
yes,
is
absolutely,
this? Okay.
absolutely. It's a modern version of the Enlightenment, secularism.
What a terrible life. Like, seriously, it blows my mind that people want to be gods. Like, it absolutely blows my mind that anybody can say, you know what, yeah, living forever is better
Mhm.
than value. You know what's funny?
Ask me at year 500 how life is going, because I think
When
you're going to
all
be
your-
about done.
When all your friends are gone, your family, everybody that you've loved. Look, there's a reason why things hold value in this
Mhm.
world. There's a reason why this retreat holds value.
Mhm.
It's 3 days.
Yeah.
Right? The reason that anything holds
Wow.
value is because
Yeah.
of the fact that it has an ending, and you know
Mhm.
it. This podcast, our friendship,
Yeah.
the people that you love, it's all going to end. And that's what makes things valuable. When you take that away, you lose the value
Mhm.
of what anything is. If you had whatever you wanted
Mhm.
forever, there would be no way to put any sort of concept of love or value on that item at
Yeah.
all.
Well, it just, I don't see it providing a solution for the billions of people that have already died, you know, like, and again, you provide something that way, and then now there's a huge demand for it, and only certain people get to have it.
Right.
And yeah, so that's a real thing, you know.
I did not realize people were comparing AI to, or making AI a new religion.
Oh, there's a religion.
I did
If
not
you
know
look
that.
it up, there's a name for it. It's crossing my mind right now, but yeah. And I'm getting all of this because I'm very connected with these tech executives and people behind the scenes, and they share things with me, and it's wild, you guys. Like, if you've ever looked up wetware, so you know about software.
Sure.
There's another thing coming out. The whole idea, I believe, is to reverse engineer God's creation, pursuing this age-old, you know, thing of becoming like God. But there's a thing called wetware. It's publicly known. They are now, instead of using electronic signals and silicon, taking the cellular biological and creating machines out of brains. And so there is actually online right now, a video game is being played on a brain that they have grown in a lab. And if you look up wetware, that's going to be all over the news in the next like 5 years, 10 years, because it's going to merge from purely machine. Like, we could talk about the robotics transition that's going to happen. Like, you guys, they're warehouses full of tens of thousands of robots right now that they're going to just like put out. But
that movie was so terrible, man.
iRobot, or
Yes,
I know it, and it's Brave New World style.
So crazy. Dude.
But yeah,
Oh, boy.
the whole that's all public. So anyone listening, like, feel free to look up wetware. You can see everything I'm talking about. But that's going to be the shift. Is it's going to go from purely mechanical to biological. And you see all the narratives forming now, you know, even the whole population drop agenda. Like, they're talking about, oh, we don't have enough people. We got to substitute with robots. That's going to soon shift to, well, we need to genetically, you know, enhance the birthing process. So they're working on birthing pods and
I mean, okay, so robots now come in and take over all of these tasks for us, and
yeah.
people have nothing to do. Is this where universal basic income comes in?
So fun research. Sam Altman, and talk about narrative, you guys. Over 10 years, he's been conducting studies in the U.S. You can look this up on universal basic income. Talk about knowing the future. This guy has been doing studies. They're publicly available. Everyone has failed. It always
You
leads.
ask any cop, and they can tell you exactly
Yes.
how that's going to go.
Yes.
Okay.
Because psychologically, we're geared to work. We're geared
need
to
purpose.
work. Yeah, and own our work and have that value. And so, yeah, there are people, and I'm like, this is just, they gave random people, families in the U.S., daily stipends, like, just chose them and said, hey, we're going to give you $5,000 a month, you know, and that was how they got entered in the study. And yeah, every one of them, became less productive. They became less motivated.
Good meat starts long before it hits your plate. Acme Acres in Spirit Lake, Idaho offers beef shares, pork shares, and lamb shares raised the right way. Their beef is grass-fed and grass-finished, and their meat is 100% all natural. It's as pure and real as North Idaho. No hormones, no antibiotics, and no vaccines. Just real meat from a local North Idaho farm straight to your freezer. Call your farmer Jason at 208-714-0478 or visit acmeacres.us.
Well, it's crazy too, because like, you're saying all this stuff about the robots and these birthing pods, and immediately my thought goes to, I can't wait till I'm dead, right? But here's the reason I say that, but there's a reality behind it, because that's a world I don't want to be part of.
Sure.
And this is how
come
morally, ethically, everything else, this is how the shift happens, right? You have people that have a belief that goes against where it's going.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is wait for them to leave, right? You just have to wait for them to be gone.
We're lucky. Well, sorry, you need to finish your thought.
No, I'm in.
We're old enough where we're gonna die before that world fully takes effect, right? But it's our kids, our grandkids.
It's already here.
It's that fast?
It's that fast. Within 5 years, these things are going to be walking the streets, you guys.
Is in your opinion, I mean, are we at the precipice
yes.
of a war between good and evil?
Well, I think that's been age old.
We've been already.
Okay,
doing
legit
this.
though. Let me ask
Yeah.
you a question.
Mm-hmm.
People up here will like shoot down drones.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we're going to be fighting robots in
Yes.
North Idaho? I have a feeling that they're not going to do well on Sherman Avenue.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, but
there's going to be a fight.
You know there's already a UFC alternative with robots, right?
I'm in.
And this is like not like the cheesy. I mean,
not like the ones with like
oh no,
like actual
Dude,
humanoid.
they're
robots.
like legit martial art robots, and people don't realize
They're training.
If you get up to one of these things and you shove it or move, it's solid. This is like Terminator, you know. And I know for a fact this is all being funded for military. Like it's always like, oh, this
Sure.
is for civil service.
Listen, the military's 20 years ahead of us
Sure.
anyways. If
Yeah.
this stuff is being introduced to us now, it's been around for
Yeah.
a while.
It's scary. Yes, they can freaking out jujitsu you, and they're
Yeah.
strong as shit. But
Yeah.
it's even scarier because they can see in the dark.
Mhm.
They have senses we can't even perceive, and they're accurate.
We have an opportunity right now as a public to get ahead because we're funding it. I met a guy in North Idaho who bought one of these, and it was like one of the in-house, you know, robots.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why did you do that? You know, like, you know what this is doing. Well, you know, but the convenience. And I have a saying with our team that convenience kills. That is actually one of the biggest problems Americans have is comfort and convenience.
Bro, that's exactly it.
Mhm.
So you look at this podcast, you could
Mhm.
rile some people up with just hearing all this stuff. But do you know what's going to happen to every one of us included tonight?
Yeah.
So we're going to go to bed comfortable
Oh.
in our homes, and we're going to fall asleep. We're going to watch something on Netflix,
Instagram. Yeah.
and then we're going to go to bed. And
Yeah.
tomorrow's just another day.
Mhm.
That's the problem. Is that there's very few things that we've gotten to the point that people want to die for because
Yeah.
they feel like, you see how many good causes are out there,
Yeah.
and they just don't gain
It's all
traction.
part of the plan, David.
I know.
Yeah, and it's, I think, by intention to exhaust and disrupt and keep distracted. But yeah, a narrative that's unfolding now that's literally almost 100 years old is not quite human, in my opinion. And I think that we should have our eyes open. And if anyone is interested in the spiritual and faith background, they should be looking because there's going to need to be discernment in the near future. But yeah, just on that subject, my message with this event, Echo, is there's hope. And I think as humans, as creation, we should never give up that right to always be hoping, always be believing in something better. And with my story, I was literally, I almost died a few times in my life. And that's why, you know, I'm like 30 and have just very serious about all of this. But the realization I had, I was angry at God and I said, you know, I have no control over my life. I have zero control over my circumstances. And that bothered me. It made me depressed, very depressed. And I was involved at that time. I lost everything that I enjoyed. You know, I played music at different churches and I was really bedridden and a lot of time to think. So much pain and suffering, you guys, this disease, so stupid. But in that moment, I was here with God. I was telling this, I was studying all kinds of other religions. I was looking for a way out, you know, because I was raised in a Christian family. Um, I kept coming back, you know, to my faith and even philosophy. You know, I was reading the Stoics, you know, the Enchiridion and things like that. And at the end of the day, I was praying that, and then I realized, you know, the response or the wisdom that I got from that was that yes, we have no control over our circumstances, and we never will. And in fact, science admits this. It's always an estimate. It's always a percentage chance. Like, you don't know the sun's going to rise tomorrow. We have a good faith that it will, but we can't prove with 100% certainty anything with science. It's always a you know, practice. But with this, I realized while I don't have control over my circumstances, what I do have control over is my response. And we're all about blaming anything and everything but ourselves in the society right
Your
now.
response is your responsibility.
Yes. And that changed my life, you guys. And that's why I'm on this podcast today, is because in my room, when I was had no impact, no control, I said, you know what? Even though feel like I'm dying right now, I'm suffering like crazy, I'm going to just still choose joy, fruits of the Spirit in the Bible. You know, I've never met anyone that wakes up in the morning is like, man, I want to be fearful today.
Mm.
Like, man, I want to be anxious. I would love a little bit more, anxiety. No, we desire the fruits of the spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Right? Those, you just say those words, and it's like, yes, that's what I want for me.
You know what's crazy is I've never had a convenience in this world,
Mhm.
not one, that has put me so at ease, other than prayer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to me. I look at I've been very blessed in my life, just like
Mhm.
a lot of people, right? But
Yeah.
more blessed than many others, and not as blessed as But I've had a lot of conveniences in my
Mhm.
life, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of them have come from hard work or anything else. But I have never had a paycheck, a vehicle, a house, a vacation, anything that's ever actually
Mhm.
put my heart at ease. But I'll tell you, the times that my heart goes at ease the most is when I'm the angriest
Mm.
that I've ever been. And I usually get slapped in the face by God. This is like a typical thing where like I get mad and he's like, told you, can't,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
ain't about you. And I find myself that when I come to prayer, I put myself in those positions. Like
Mhm.
this morning at 6 a.m. at Forge, I cannot avoid joy.
Yeah.
Well, I literally can't. When I'm in those positions and I'm in the presence of
Mhm.
God, I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
what am I?
Mm.
Like it's so peaceful. That's
Yeah.
why when people go into the forest and you're just in the
Mhm.
presence, it is
Yeah.
unreal.
Mm.
Yeah, you realize that this world in the created order is so much more than we can make with
Dude.
sandcastles. And so from there, I made a choice to choose joy, to choose being productive. And you guys, I wound up on national news from that, because I realized, you know what? I've got a huge heart for these kids that I've seen in the hospital. They're way worse off than me, they're terminally ill. It's like, what can I do about it? I organized this team and we made it snow in California
That's awesome.
for a hospital, children's hospital.
Dude, I've seen that.
Really?
I have seen. I don't know if it was yours or something else, but I have seen that.
Yeah. So we did
No
that.
way.
Yeah, we did a bunch of things at that time. I was a lot younger. We organized like superheroes and stuff to go visit,
So cool.
and just
Dude.
had a lot of fun. And that was kind of my first blessing from that decision. But man, I would not be where I am and have the amazing experiences and a life that's fulfilled, if I had stayed depressed and just said, you know what, what's the point? Because the nihilist is very tempting. And that's the secular reasoning, is like, there's no purpose.
Yeah.
You're just cells. You got no, but yeah, that's kind of my message with this event, is just let's get together, organize around this alternative. If you want to think about Star Wars, we're the Rebel Alliance, like
Yeah.
we're that embodied culture. If you think about Terminator, right? We're the John Connor.
What's what's the date of that thing again? I want to put that in there.
September 11th through the 13th.
It's easy to remember.
And there is so much more I didn't share on this podcast. If you just go to the website, Shiloh with an H, echo.org, there's everything you need to know. And if for people, we got people flying in.
Oh,
They're,
cool.
they're landing at Spokane, driving almost 2 hours to go to this event.
Dude, this is gonna be awesome.
And essentially, we'll take care of you. If you show up, we're gonna have a whole team there. Make sure that even your food sensitivities, things like that, it's all during checkout. Like when you order tickets, you can share. So
And
That is
you've
so
got
cool.
some. I love Idaho because we're fortunate. We get to talk to so many people on this
yeah,
podcast,
seriously.
and then the connections just keep
Mhm.
happening, right? I met Neil.
Mhm.
Who did I meet Neil through? I can't even remember, but somebody else. And then now you, and
Yeah.
all of these amazing people that are tied together with this common mission or goal in mind. I
I
love it.
love this shit.
Yes.
It's all
It's awesome.
common minds up
Mhm.
here,
Yeah.
and that's absolutely what makes this so special.
Yeah. And so full circle, the Lord brought us here.
Mm.
I had no idea this place existed. He has since made all these connections for us.
It's brought a
And
lot of people here.
yes, and I see that over and over. And he's organizing in other places in the US as well. But I I want a future where you own everything. That's our whole promise with Shiloh and Last Hour Hosting, is technology you fully own. It's all open source. We should own everything we do. That makes us a stronger society, like hands down. Should be decentralized. We should be in community. Like, social media is such a cesspool. Like, it lacks that realness. And I'm seeing this next generation, Gen Z, pushing away from that stuff and organizing like I saw a video the other day of a rock band, you know, in their garage, and they're just like, just for fun, they're just doing that again, even though there's AI music and all this.
Good.
And yeah, I think it takes a generation and a cultural movement away from this direction, because we all know, you know, how that story ends. And that's why I challenge people that are passionate about these things. It's like, well, what do you think the outcome is? What do you honestly, what do you think the end result of all this is? Is it going to be a better life for us or worse? I don't know. Elon Musk and these guys, they are full in. They believe in a Star Trek future, where we have no work, you know, where we have everything taken care of, abundance. You know, I think he even said on stage, "Do whatever you want, whenever you want."
Yes, on the Joe
Hmm.
Rogan
Yeah,
podcast. I remember hearing him say that.
you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. And it's kind of, you know, if you look at the Satanist
It's
stuff,
terrifying.
yeah,
Yeah, because there are some people, and maybe Elon's
hmm,
this way, that would do good things
sure,
and would be productive and would still, chase passions and do all this. But if you've worked in public safety, as we have, there is a large
Dude.
segment of the
yeah,
population that will do nothing
yeah,
and will do bad stuff.
yeah. Have you guys talked about the flock cameras?
No,
No, not yet.
no,
We
not yet.
we touched on it before. I don't think on here, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
no. Um,
we won't open that can of
we,
worms.
we we need to do that another
Yeah,
time though. But that is something that is a huge topic for a
yeah,
lot of people
look,
up here because they're here. I
at
think.
this point, surveillance, and I
hmm,
sound very like defeated with this, but
hmm,
how do you go about it? It's like you start signing petitions. I mean, okay, we'll see how far that goes. The truth is, surveillance is here. You
hmm.
talk about these robots, you talk about all this stuff, the cameras on, and then like
Tesla vehicles, like
all of it.
it's it's a wet dream for the intelligence community.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't need to record this. It's all being
yeah,
recorded right now.
us and open source intelligence is just so easy. Like it used to
Yeah,
be that you had to convince people, or you had to hide, you know, during the Cold War, spy devices, listening devices. Now they've just convinced people, hey, Amazon Alexa, or you know,
you're right.
like
Yeah,
it is very interesting. And I wonder why that is, you know, like and I think it's comfort. I think it's
convenience.
convenience that's driving that
Mhm.
change. Because everyone I've talked to realizes and doesn't like it, but they end up, like you said, at the end of the day, they just cave and
Well, do a commercial for an Amazon Alexa
yeah,
with the real reason why you wanted it at home.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Go ahead and
seriously,
advertise. Actually, we'll listen to you all day long.
yeah,
And this is, you know what I mean? Put that on the commercial and see who buys it.
yeah.
It's not. It's how do we make this useful for people to
Yep.
make their lives better?
And I'm a technologist. I'm all about alternative technology, and I can tell you 100% everything that you use, there is an alternative that is actually better. Like my phone, I'm running Graphene OS. Have you heard about that?
No.
It is fully local, fully owned by me. It's open source, which means I can see all the code for it, and that can be purchased for less than a normal phone. And the only reason you don't have that is because you don't know about it.
Yeah.
And that goes across the board,
I
even
know
with,
about it now.
yes, even so, yeah, even with AI, there are local open source versions that you fully own that do not connect all your data to central databases. And it's about the same price. Like you can do
It's
that.
crazy.
Yeah, and it's across the board. So at this event, we're literally going to have a technology department where you'll walk. If you've ever been to something like DEF CON, it's a convention in Las Vegas that's very famous for hackers and things. You're going to have access and play with all these devices that are alternatives
Oh,
that you
cool.
fully own. We've got Ameridroid coming. They're a fully US based distributor of microelectronics, and they're all about the alternative. Our company is going to be there, Shiloh, with last hour hosting. And like we've already fielded and installed security cameras, for example, that have fully local object detection, you know, everything in that. And once you buy it, you own it. So you're not paying monthly subscriptions, you know, ongoing for it. So we've got all these ideas and things, and it's just going to be a great time of collaboration and sharing, you know.
That's awesome.
I cannot wait for this. We're definitely
I think
coming.
we have to
Cool.
go.
We're definitely
Yes.
coming.
I
Yeah.
think I have to go.
I think well, once people hear this too, a lot of our listeners are going to be
Yay,
very.
yeah.
We're going to get.
Yeah,
a
and
lot
we'll
of
put all
attention.
your stuff in here too, so that people can reach out and
Nice.
check out the website and
Yep.
everything else.
That
This
was
is freaking
huge.
awesome.
I've put everything on the line for this.
Cool.
We've invested our own money, like I said, because we believe in this. And so if there's any companies out there that are interested in sponsoring, we're going to reach over 1 million people with this. We're partnered with Azure Standard. Have you heard of them? They're
Oh, yes.
yes, national drop site for healthy food, locally sourced. They're on board, so they're going to be
Yep.
sharing about it. But yeah, and we're running it very lean. I connected with Joel Salatin of Polyface Farms, and he was like, "Good on you for not having another nonprofit that's running on state funding or
Right.
that you guys are fully funded by yourselves." So it's a and also owning a company, we could talk about this as an entrepreneur, has been the most painful thing I've ever done in my life. And it's more painful than this disease that I've gone through.
Yeah.
And the US doesn't help. I think that there's so much coming against small businesses.
For sure.
And so that's why we're all about small
You're
business.
not as controllable
Mhm.
as anything else, especially as a nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Tony,
much-
this is
so
freaking
much
cool.
good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is really good.
We're hitting time limit, but we're gonna have to come back at some
Thank you,
point.
yeah.
So anyway,
I'd
if you
like to
guys
have
are
you
out
back
there,
after the Shiloh
Yeah,
retreat.
let's
I'd
do it.
like to have you back after so
Would
we
be
can actually talk
honored.
about the impact and,
Yes.
and how it went for
Yeah.
sure.
Would
and
be
I-
honored.
and I can think
And
of,
more about robots.
and I can think of a few people I want to connect you with down here too.
Yay,
That
cool.
that
Yeah.
would very much vibe with you. Yeah. So anyway, Tony, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
This was a fantastic conversation.
All right,
My
Shiloh
pleasure.
retreat.
Mhm.
Shiloh Echo Retreat.
Yeah, shilohecho.org.
Okay. It'll
Perfect.
be in the show notes. You can find it there. Later.
Thank you.